Spring practice is back. Football starts today. Let's go.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy Monday means we're joined by Lindsay Crosby of AuburnDaily.com and the host of Locked On MLB Prospects. The Hugh Freeze era, as far as practice being here, Lindsay, it starts today. The media will get a 20-minute or so viewing period later today. We'll discuss that on tomorrow's show. But Lindsay, I mean, we've talked about the roster time and time again since the end of the season. And there's just a bunch of dudes that could be huge winners over the course of the next few weeks throughout Auburn spring. So we're going to highlight two guys on offense, two guys on defense that could be huge winners this spring. The first one is very, very clear, Lindsay Crosby. Yes, before we jump into it.
Just clarifying, we're talking about practice. Practice.
Practice.
Not a game. Not a game. We're talking about practice. Okay, go ahead.
The first player that could be a huge winner this spring. He could be the winner. He could be the storyline of spring. Holden Geriner. Entering this, arguably the third-string quarterback. I think there's a strong chance he's the second-string quarterback, Lindsay. We will have to certainly wait and see. But if this goes the way Holden Geriner wants it to go, and maybe the way Hugh Freeze wants it to go, Philip Montgomery, we'll have to wait and see. But look, Holden Geriner, he can run this offense, whether it's Philip Montgomery, whether it's Hugh Freeze's system. Holden Geriner has all the tools to be able to do this. He doesn't have the legs of Robbie Ashford, but he's still mobile enough, we think. We haven't seen it at the college level yet, but he's got the traits, I believe, to do everything you would need him to do in an effective spread offense that Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery have done in their entire career.
You putting him at third is, I think, a lot more complimentary to TJ Finley than a lot of other people are. I do think he is probably the second quarterback, just based on how everything goes. But the thing for Golden Holden is he does not have the negative tape from his time at Auburn that Robbie Ashford does. Obviously, they have not been able to get guys on the field to actually work with them yet. And Hugh Freeze is big on, I want to see a quarterback throw before I offer a guy, when I'm evaluating guys.
Right.
And so right now, since he can't see Holden Geriner throw or Robbie Ashford throw until today, everything that he's seen has been on film from last season. And for the most part, Robbie Ashford's tape, while with flashes of brilliance, that throw in the Iron Bowl keeps coming back to me.
Beautiful.
For the most part, was not great. And so I'm not going to say you have a completely clean slate because you don't, but he's working out of a hole that is significantly shallower than Robbie Ashford's hole. And I think that's a good thing for him. I think it's a good thing for the offense. And if you look at some of the quarterbacks Hugh Freeze has had before, Holden Geriner has a lot of those same traits. The size, a good arm. He may be more mobile than we think. We just haven't really seen it. But either way, it feels like this is his time to go out and to impress the coaching staff and for them to really give a lot of time and attention to him, since you only have 4 quarterbacks in spring right now, because you have your 3 scholarship guys and Sawyer Pate, and that's all you have. There's not a bunch of walk-ons like normal.
Right.
And so there's extra reps out there for them to spend time with him and pour into him the same as he has time to go out there and impress the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think it's really telling also. You look at, his first chance to go out and get a high school quarterback, and he does, Walker White, and he looks much similar to Holden Geriner as far as ability and as far as what they've done up to that point. If you look at what Holden did through his junior year of high school, like very similar traits there versus, what Robbie Ashford brings. And look, it's really fun to think about, what if Robbie Ashford could be Malik Willis? And I'm not saying that he can't be. I don't think he is, but I'm not saying that he can't be. And obviously, if he goes out there and shows like, hey, he's that good, he's going to win the starting job. And you may not even go out and get a transfer guy. You never know. No clue. But I think it's telling that when Hugh Freeze had the opportunity to pull out all the stops and make sure he got his high school quarterback for his first full class at Auburn, that he went out and got Walker White. And to me, that kind of gives Holden Geriner a shot, because it's like, look, this is the offense that we are currently running. This is the offense that we are currently running, and the offense that you're going to be running in the future. When you talk about, he talked about it on the show last week when he came on with Walker saying, he sat down with Philip Montgomery and they were showing him tape of him coaching RG3. And it's like, okay, he's not RG3, but he could still be used in the offense the same way as RG3. And so just because they don't have that elite mobility doesn't mean they can't be effective with their feet. And so I think Holden Geriner has a real shot to be one of the guys that could be huge winners in spring over the next few weeks. Let's do another guy on offense before we move to the defensive side of the ball. Lindsay, who are you thinking?
I'm thinking Damari Alston. I think he's the forgotten guy in this running back room because we look at Brian Battie is in. He's 1 year of eligibility left. We all assume he's automatically the backup. You've got a Jeremiah Cobb coming. He's the highly touted recruit. And Alston's the guy that we kind of leave out. But the thing is, Cobb is not here in spring. And so if you're Damari Alston, you have a great opportunity to go out in spring, do all of the dirty work, get in the pass blocking drills, flash your hands and your pass catching ability, do everything that you can do to submit yourself as the backup, or like to put yourself in that rotation, knowing that when Jeremiah Cobb gets here in summer or fall, he has to learn the playbook essentially from scratch. Yeah. You can be ahead of him. You have to show you understand the playbook and you understand your fit in the offense, but you can go ahead and submit yourself in a role in your freshman year, in a year where a lot of people, and there's been times when I was included in this, have kind of just assumed that Cobb was going to be the guy.
I'm in that boat.
Was going to come in as a true freshman and be the backup or the number 3 and kind of take your place. You have a chance to go out there and submit your role, at least early in the season. Coaches make up the lineup before the season starts. Players make the lineup once games are here. Wow. You have a chance to play yourself. I stole it from Butch Thompson. You have a way, you have the ability to play yourself into that first week lineup based on what you do in spring, whereas Jeremiah Cobb does not.
Yeah. I think you could look back, probably at the show 365 days ago, and that was one of our storylines. Like, can Jarquez Hunter do enough in spring? And then he missed a lot of spring because he had that minor procedure on his knee. And then we're like, oh, okay. All right. And then Damari Alston looked good, right? He looked good in his limited roles there. And then all of a sudden it's like, did he do enough? Like, is Jarquez Hunter, should he be worried about Damari Alston? And then in fall, he looks great. Wasn't even wearing a brace. And it's like, okay, yeah. So I say all that to say, like, the best running backs are going to play, which is exciting, which is great. It's Jarquez Hunter 1. And after that, I just really don't know, because I think a lot of it, Lindsay, is going to come down to role. And I don't know exactly what role Battie can play. Like, can he be a full-time backup in the SEC? I think he can. I think some people are overplaying the argument of his size. We'll have to wait and see. But look, I like Damari Alston, and a lot of people assume I don't because I'm so stinking high on Jeremiah Cobb, and I still am. I'm still very high on Jeremiah Cobb, but Damari Alston can make a statement. There's no question about it that he can make a statement this spring, and he's another guy that could be a huge winner this spring. I think that's a great pick, Lindsay. We've got 2 defenders, both newcomers, that could be huge winners for Auburn this spring. We'll tell you who in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. You've got to try Built Bars. They are the best, delicious, healthy treat. If you don't want all the fat and calories, and you literally have to try Built Bar. All bars are covered 100% in real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And now they're available in Walmart and Sam's Club. You guys are DMing me a lot more now because you're seeing Built Bars in Walmart and Sam's Club, and you guys are holding them, which I love. Keep these messages coming. And you guys are like, should I get them? And I'm like, of course you should get this delicious, flavorful treat that's covered 100% in real chocolate. And you look at the nutrition label and you're like, oh my gosh, how is this even possible? Low calories, high protein, virtually no sugar. and then you eat it and you're like, man, this tastes like a candy bar. Try it. Try it. It's probably your closest Walmart or Sam's Club. And of course, you can check out built.com for even more flavor options. Lindsay Crosby, our guest every single Monday here. My defensive player that could be a huge winner this spring, DeMario Tolan. We've talked about the linebacker situation over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I think the transfer from LSU is in a battle. A three-way battle for, I think, 2 real spots. And there's going to be probably more rotation than we saw a year ago. But I think in what we're going to see, that 4-2 front where it's a nickel, nickel is the new base. I don't think there's going to be a ton of snaps where Auburn has more than 2 linebackers on the field at the same time as far as those Mike linebackers that we've seen. Because sometimes we're going to call that Jack linebacker a linebacker, and sometimes we're going to call it a stand-up end. But as far as what I'm calling it, there's going to be 2 of these guys. When the battle between Tolan and then Cam Riley, the incumbent, and of course the Ole Miss transfer Austin Keys, I think DeMario Tolan can come in and remind people of these elite linebackers that we've had in the past. The Kobe McLeans, the Deshaun Davises, the Trey Williams. I think there's a lot of guys that Auburn has seen lead defense, be in the middle of the defense, where you're like, DeMario Tolan could be that next dude. No offense to Cam Riley, but I think those 2 guys are going to be battling it out, and it's going to be really, really fun to see. Yeah,
those are lofty names to be grouped in with. But I do think when you look at these linebackers, and I think DeMario Tolan's a great choice for this, you're kind of going to split them up into 2 different types of linebackers. You're going to have the Austin Keys type, 245, 250, the bigger bodies that play more of that traditional middle linebacker role. And then you're going to have, the guys like a DeMario Tolan, like a Eugene Asante, if he's able to get in, that are a little bit lighter. Tolan's like 220 or so, a little bit lighter, a little bit rangier, can do a little more in coverage. If you ever get in a situation where you drop down to a 1 linebacker set, that's probably the guy who's in. And I do find it kind of interesting. DeMario Tolan's number this spring, number 0.
Wow.
Similar to the 6 foot, 200 and change pound, super speedy linebacker who we had in the middle before in Owen Pappoe.
Right.
Not saying he's going to be Owen Pappoe, but
I hope he's better than Owen Pappoe was.
I think he'll have a lot of the same aspects of the game as far as the speed, the range, things like that. Obviously, you want him to be a little more stout in run support, things like that. But it does feel like this is his opportunity. One, to come in and seize the starting job in spring, but 2, for the coaching staff to really focus on him and making him the captain of the defense, because he's already transferred once. He's a sophomore, and so you're guaranteed, barring him choosing to sit out for a year, you're guaranteed to have DeMario Tolan for 2 seasons. Whereas Austin Keys is a junior, he'll be draft eligible. It's something where once these guys have used that 1 free transfer, it is very difficult for that player to pull the trigger on leaving again without graduating. And so I think there is a little bit of this guy is here. Yeah. We can spend a little more of our time and our attention and our resources developing him, right, knowing, barring a worst case scenario, he's going to be here for at least 2 seasons.
That's interesting. Because obviously Cam Riley could leave.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to. But you do wonder, like, if those 2 guys have a better spring than him, like, does he think about it? That'd be really interesting to think about.
On this note, it kind of makes me go back to the quarterback conversation we just had. Like, you look at
Geriner can leave.
Holden Geriner can leave. Robbie Ashford can't leave. TJ Finley supposedly hasn't left because he hasn't graduated yet. And so do you spend extra time developing Holden Geriner in spring?
Make him feel a little loved, like, hey, we're taking you seriously.
Exactly. You want him to feel like the coaching staff really does value and appreciate and want him to be the guy before and during Walker White's time on campus and transition, because that unlike Ashford and Finley, it's a lot easier for Golden Holden to leave than it is for anybody else. And so I think, like, that's the world we live in now. You have to pay attention to these things. So
yeah, people talk about recruiting your current players. That's exactly what that looks like. My defensive, I already gave you mine. Who is your defensive player that could be a huge winner this spring, Lindsay Crosby.
We're talking about playing time, and I think about one of the positions that I feel like we need more depth at. A lot of people tell me we don't, but edge.
Who's telling you not? Who's telling you that we don't need that?
I've seen, there's been people
sure there are
in the YouTube comments and on Twitter who have been like, I think we're good with our room. Listen, Keldric Faulk is an early enrollee, and I love when you have freshmen early enrollees who can be in spring, but especially love it when they're at a position of need. Because I feel like right now, obviously, you brought in a transfer, right? You brought in Elijah McAllister. He's supposed to be your guy, your starter. But you're in a situation where Dylan Brooks has been here for a while. He hasn't been he hasn't got as much play time as people would have liked at the jack position. He hasn't put up the stats that you necessarily would like. And so Keldric Faulk being here in the spring, I think gives him a better chance to learn the playbook, as well as to start on the physical work you have to do to be acclimated to the SEC, the conditioning work, the strength work. He's already a significantly large human being, 6'5", 240, but getting that physical work in, getting that mental work in, the reps and the playbook, so that when the season starts, he can not only be your number 2 edge, but he can have an impact his first year versus a guy like a Dylan Brooks, who has been here for a while, but again, starting on a clean slate. If you are better than him, like people think you are, like you claim you are, you have an opportunity now to take that play time, because there is no for sure number 2 edge in stone on this roster.
Yeah, and so I want to talk just for a second about the jack linebacker situation. So with what we're going to see from that position, it's different than the edge that we've seen over the last few years, last half decade at Auburn. These jacks, and when you saw it some, like Carl Lawson did it some, Jeff Holland did it some, like the whole dropping back in the coverage, this is going to happen more this year than it has in years past. And so I'm just looking at Auburn's official roster right now.
You got 5.
Elijah McAllister is 6'6", 265. Keldric Faulk, 6'5", 240. Brenton Williams is 6'4", 245. Hayden Bryce is 6'3", 226. And Dylan Brooks is 6'4", 232. So a few of those guys are smaller and undersized, right? And that's just kind of their thing. But the guys that I think are going to play more, which is Keldric Faulk and Elijah McAllister, and I think Dylan Brooks will have a specific pass rush role. I just don't love the idea of putting guys more than 240 pounds in coverage. That's just something that's just a philosophical thing I just don't believe in. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. And sure, the element of creepers is like, you don't show blitz, but 4 people are coming no matter what. It may be the 4 down linemen, and maybe 3 down linemen. You drop the jack back into coverage, and DeMario Tolan or Austin Keys or Cam Riley come in, and you got to always prepare for that. I get it. That's what creepers is. And, Roberts, defensive coordinator, Ron Roberts, talks all about havoc rate and things like that. That's what causes it. And so you get a little bit of an advantage, right? If you're kind of keeping the opposing offense on its toes, but still we're dropping a 250-pound man in the coverage. And I just don't love that, Lindsay. So keep in mind, when we talk about the jack, it's a different skill set than what we did when we talked about the edge over the past few years. And so this is something that possibly could help Dylan Brooks. I've kind of pooped on him for saying hey, why can't you gain weight? But all of a sudden, 6'4", 232, I'm much more comfortable with him in the flats than I am Elijah McAllister, right? I mean, it's just a 30-pound difference. It's easier to move 230 than it is 260, So we'll see. We will certainly see what that looks like. Keldric Faulk, that's a lot of information to learn while you're already kind of adapting to the speed of the game. I mean, he's used to playing 2A ball, right? I mean, he's going from 2A ball to the SEC. That's a big jump. That's a huge jump. And so we'll have to see how that translates, Lindsay. But the skill set, it's not just a traditional edge anymore. The jack is different. But if Keldric Faulk figures it out, Lindsay, there's a chance we're looking at a Marlon Davidson impact early, true freshman type stuff. He's got it. He has it physically. Can he put it all together? If he does, he'll be a huge winner this spring.
Yeah, and this is I'm not going to go as far as to say that how this jack room shakes out determines the season, but I think the ceiling of this defense is predicated on how much production you can get out of the Jack room. Like you said, Elijah McAllister is a little oversized for your pass coverage kind of stuff, but you do have the ability here to, like, the better that they play, the better your defense is going to be, because this is going to be when you don't have something schemed up, when you don't have a designer pressure called, this is going to be the position that provides that consistent pass rush for you. Mm-hmm. And so if Keldric Faulk can acclimate to this room quickly, and again, I love having him here for spring so that you can do that.
Agreed.
It raises the ceiling for your defense. And so that's why that's why I am very excited for your Tuesday show, where you're going to have first-person impressions of what you saw at practice, because I'm hopeful for good news about Keldric Faulk.
No question. No question about it. All right. We're recording this a few minutes after I just got home from one of the weirdest baseball games I've ever watched. Let's recap the weekend. Auburn didn't lose. Auburn never lost to USC. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Hey, Alumni Hall. It's the best place to buy all of your Auburn swag. There's no question about it. More and more of you are messaging me talking about how great Alumni Hall is. And it's like, I know. I'm glad you're learning. It's awesome stuff. Great name brands, all officially licensed Auburn gear. Aubie's all over the place. They've got stuff you can wear. They've got stuff your house can wear and your walls can wear if you want to put stuff on your walls. Drinkware. So I guess that's stuff that your drink can wear. Alumni Hall's got all of it. All of it. If you're in the Auburn, Opelika, Lee County area, they've got 2 stores, one in Opelika, one in Auburn. Also one in Huntsville. Even you Huntsville people are reaching out. I love it. 4 hours is so far from Auburn. Alumni Hall is home, right? Alumni Hall is home. Be sure to check it out. There are 3 in-person stores throughout the state, or alumnihall.com. Lindsay, Crosby, before we jump into things, what all do you have going on these days, my friend?
Oh my gosh. So auburndaily.com, I am putting out baseball pieces just about every single day. It is wild.
You're a crazy person.
We have a ton of stuff going on, but also Locked On MLB Prospects, the podcast, on Twitter at Locked On Farm, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Spring training has started. And so the best thing about spring training, if you're a prospect guy like me, is that these vets play 5 innings tops. They're on the golf course by 2:30. And so the prospects who are in camp are the ones getting the rest of the at-bats. So it's a great time on the show as well. Check that out. And then we're busy designing new merch at aushirts.com. So tons of stuff going on.
And quick programming note, I'm expecting a second child any week now.
That is wild that you are having a baby. I am so impressed. I have met somebody. I know somebody who's going to make history.
Well, I don't want to take credit, but really my wife's doing most of the work.
Oh, okay.
Let's just be clear here.
Yeah. Okay.
But when that happens, Lindsay will be taking over the show for probably about a week. Few shows to a week. We'll see. He'll be joined by Charlie 5 and Daryl and some of the other guys. So just kind of be on a heads up for that.
Possession is 9/10 of the law, folks. So we'll see what happens after that week.
Okay. Got it. All right. So Auburn wins Friday and Saturday and then ties 12-12 on Sunday to USC. Of course, this game was supposed to be in LA. Lindsay, they rescheduled it on Wednesday. Pretty incredible work by both programs to keep this game on the schedule. Sounds like there was some blizzard stuff going on in California. So it was played here. USC traveled really well, Lindsay. And Auburn's bats looked really, really good throughout the weekend. It appears to be sustainable, maybe a little better than we thought it would be.
Yeah, so looking at the weekend, you score 5 runs on Friday. Close game, actually had a save situation, 5-3. Saturday, 12-6. Auburn has 3 innings. You put up crooked numbers, kind of explosion of bats. And then Sunday is just completely off the rails, drunk, 12-12 tie. One of the wildest games I have seen in quite a while.
And of course, it's a tie. Like,
what in the
world?
It's a tie. So to clarify what happened, because of all of this craziness with the travel, Auburn booked travel for UFC on Tuesday afternoon. Their flight is leaving out of Atlanta. And so the rule passed was no new inning could start after 3:30 p.m. on a 12 o'clock first pitch. Normally, not a big deal, right? 11 runs were scored in the first 2 innings on Sunday. So this game drug on. The 9th inning started at like 3:22 or something like that. So the 9th inning was going to be it. USC gets runners on first and third, gets a base hit. The guy comes in to score the winning run, but didn't touch home plate. They touched the plate. He's out. Run doesn't count.
Lindsay, there was this fan sitting. He was on the first base side, but pretty close to home plate. And he's like grabbing the net, screaming. And Nate LaRue, all the Plainsman Park's looking at this guy. He's so loud. And the ball's at second, right? Like the ball's at second base. And so LaRue like looks at the guy and he's like, he nods and he looks at to second base and he's like, I don't remember if it was second baseman or shortstop that's standing there, but they throw him the ball and then it's out and like everybody just points to this dude. It's like, and I saw a few people like crediting the dugout. And it's like, it may have been, but LaRue heard the fan. He did not hear the dugout.
Give that guy
cool.
season tickets because he saved you from losing this game to USC.
Right.
Sunday non-conference baseball is wild. You won the series on Saturday, right? And so Butch talked about this Saturday night when he met with the media. You now have an opportunity. You let a lot of the youngsters play, especially in the pitching rotation and the bullpen. Kind of give them a chance to acclimate to the college game. Sunday, 4 runs for USC before you record an out. Auburn turns around, scores 7 unanswered. USC picks up 4 more in the 4th, 3 more in the 7th. It's just a back and forth battle, but ends in a tie. Ultimately, what happens here? Auburn wins the series 2-0-1, right? It's so weird to have a tie in baseball. Yeah. I had to look up how RPI treats a tie because I literally did not know because baseball is not a sport where you tie a lot.
I've never been to a game where there was a tie, like ever in any.
Now that I think about it, I don't think I've been to many baseball games that were ties, honestly.
I've never been to one.
I went to a minor league game that went to extras, and they were going to take it to a tie if nobody scored in the 10th, but somebody scored in 1, so we're fine.
Okay.
But either way, so Auburn gets out of this. Right now, they are 5-1-1. I wrote a piece at Auburn Daily before the season started about the schedule in the RPI. This is obviously a big deal when it comes to postseason seeding. This is what basketball is dealing with right now because they lost to Kentucky so bad over the weekend. Sorry to bring up bad feelings, folks.
Yikes.
So Auburn is a top 60 team right now in RPI. They're 57th. Their opponent this upcoming weekend, Lipscomb, is a top 50 team in RPI. Southeastern Louisiana the weekend after that. They were a postseason team last year. They came to Auburn in the Auburn Regional. They were the 4 seed that Auburn exploded on for 15 runs in the first inning of game 1 last year. And then you have a home and home with Georgia Tech. So, one, root for USC to win the rest of their games, to do well in the Big 12, the Pac-12. But 2, the fact that this series got moved to home didn't hurt Auburn as much because they didn't lose any games. You get more credit for a road victory than you do a home victory, and you get more punishment for a home loss than a road loss. Auburn didn't lose anything at home, and the one tie, in essence, is a wash. There's no negative repercussions for a tie. So Auburn's in a good position. Right now, it's all going to be down to pitching. I feel like the hitting is sustainable. It's a lot of, you've got home run power. Justin Kirby has 5 hits on the season, and all of them are home runs.
Yeah.
It is the wildest stat line I have ever seen 7 games into a season. He's got 5 hits. They're all home runs, including 2 of them on Sunday, including a grand slam. Exactly.
Yep.
True freshman Ike Irish already feels like he's the best hitter on the team. He's batting in the 3-hole.
So good. He's so good.
I mean, he's
unbelievable.
It's at the point where I saw on Saturday there was a borderline pitch that he did not swing at, and the umpire called it a strike. And somebody in the press box who is works for a national outlet, as a big the big college baseball veteran, said, "Well, if Ike's not swinging, I think that probably was a ball."
Nice.
That's how good this freshman is. But the ceiling is going to be determined by this pitching staff. And these games on Sundays like this, it's 2 Sundays in a row where Auburn's given up a bunch of runs. The offense picked them up this week, unlike last week. But you're learning more about the guys you can and can't trust and who is ready for SEC action and who is not. So
they also did this all without getting like any innings from Gonzo.
Yeah, Joseph Gonzalez was out all weekend. He was supposed to be Saturday starter. When he threw his bullpen late Wednesday, he woke up on Thursday with shoulder soreness. It's the same shoulder that held him out of spring. So they held him out the whole weekend. He was not happy about it. He was not, he was very unhappy about that. But Auburn pieced it together without him. And so you feel better now about the depth in your pitching rotation. If you had to do a situation like in 2021, where you went to your 4 and your 5 and your 6 guys, you know more about them than you did. We've seen the back end of the bullpen. We've seen that these guys are close to the talent level of a Burkhalter and a Skipper as far as a John Armstrong and a Will Cannon, but they don't quite have the endurance. Armstrong had 3 appearances in 5 days, was worn down at the end of the 3rd appearance. Cannon did a back-to-back, and in the 2nd inning he was in on the 2nd day, the stuff wasn't quite there. So they can do it in shorter stints, but this is all this schedule's about right now. You want to learn as much as you can. Auburn's getting an idea of who can do it and who can't. So Wednesday night, Florida A&M, this weekend against Lipscomb. Again, all your coverage, auburndaily.com. I'll be there. I'll have all your takeaways. We'll have the live blog. We'll have the previews, the opposition scouting, everything. It'll be great.
Yep, absolutely. And you can follow all of my stuff. My written stuff is at auburndaily.com as well, including later today. I'll post practice observations as quick as I possibly can after our practice window for the first practice in the Hugh Freeze era for Auburn football. Until then, we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.